about why you choose to do the things you do, right? I chose to be in education because, one, I absolutely value education. I absolutely value mentorship, because that together is why I'm here today. It was one professor taking the time to speak to me, about things that I was interested in. I'm essentially I'm an amalgam of the experiences and from a shit ton of people, right? The advice from a shit ton of people. That's what I am, and I value that so much. And I have to remember that, again, man, like, it's overwhelming, but the juice is worth the squeeze, man. It fucking sucks, right? But, man, it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. Education is important. Students are important, and sometimes you got to work 12 hours a day. And you get lost in it because an email comes in, you respond, and then two come in, and you're just like, fuck this. And then you got to step out. I have a Post-it on my desk, and it says, remember that you love this. Remember that you love this. Remember why you chose to be a professor. Because I get lost in it, man. You have to remind yourself. We're only human, man. We're only human. We're not robots. We can't be programmed to be positive all the time. We're going to experience some shit, and how we deal with it defines us. But as long as you remember why you're doing what you're doing, and it'll make the lows less low.
And I remember the last time I had you on, you said, don't trust the people that are happy all the time. There's something wrong with them. So, it's not natural.
100%, man. They're fucking liars. Or they're like sociopaths or something. I don't fucking know, man. Like, anybody who's happy all the time, like, get lost. Like, you could be positive, that's one thing. But if you're super happy all the time, like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Life is, the world is a crazy, crazy, crazy dark place sometimes. And sometimes I find it difficult to be extremely positive. And I find it difficult not to be misanthropic. You just got to remind yourself, man. You got to remind yourself.
So speaking of some of those reminders, one thing we like to ask people on the podcast is what their daily practice is. What do they kind of do to kind of hone themselves, bring themselves back to center? Do you have any daily practices to kind of help you get that PMA on the reg?
Yo, I want to say yes. I do. I want so bad for your podcast. I want to say yes, but again, this is the reality of this is the reality, right? I don't. I absolutely, positively don't. And if I had to say, pick one practice, it's just writing things down and putting them in places where I am most frequently, either on my computer or on my desk. Because I need to, when I'm about to be caught in shit, I need to be able to step up, step away, and see something that will remind me to stay focused on the goal. Never forget the agenda. I have to see it, because when I get inside myself and when the gears start turning and shit starts becoming really dark, like, the machine is on, the machine is on and it's going to run. Unless I see something that triggers another response, I'm fucked, man. So my daily practices, not really. Generally, like, my days are great every single day, man. I work an awful lot and it's stressful, but every day, my days are great. Right now in the summer, I go to the gym in the early afternoon for an hour, and then I go train Jiu Jitsu for 2 hours. In between that, I'm reading, I'm studying, or I'm preparing lectures. But can you beat that? That's
Nope.
the best life, dude. This is exactly what I signed up, right?
Living the best life.
Honestly, man, I have like a life that's Instagrammable for the most boring people, yeah, man, it's tough to remind yourself to practice. It's tough to remind yourself when your days are good, But it's having the plan. It's like a contingency plan, or it's like a disaster plan. It's unlikely that a warhead is going to drop, but when it does, you got to be ready. And when it does, you got to look to the plan. What do you do in the event of a warhead? Well, in the event of an emotional warhead, I look at my reminders, man. I post it. It sounds corny, but shit, writing things down, it's been tremendous, man. It really is.
What are some of those reminders?
oh man, just never forget. Really, just never forget. I know it's redundant, and I sound like a broken record. Never forget. Never forget means a lot of things to me. Never forget, I have the best family and the best friendships, man. I have the best job in the world, and shit's gonna suck. Never forget that shit is gonna suck sometimes, but you'll be okay. Never forget all the shit that I've been through in graduate school. Never forget all the shit I've been through in my 20s. Never forget you lost a parent. Never forget any of it, man. Because look where I'm at. Look where I'm at, dude. I have the best. I have the best, man. Fuck. I have the best. I'm so happy. Sometimes I can cry. Like right now, I'm on the verge of tears because I'm so happy. I have the best. I have the best, dude. And I can never forget that, because as soon as I forget that, I'm fucked. Man.
So speaking of that path, you just mentioned it, never forget where you came from, everything you've been through to get to where you are at this point of being a professor. Now, is that the end goal, or is there other things beyond that, or other goals you have in your professional life that you're still striving for?
Yeah, I mean, the role of a professor is never ending, right? There's an end game, and that's to educate and influence, and it'll never end because there's a new cohort every semester. There's a new group of faces. There's new clay. There's new wet clay, and you just hope that what you do helps mold them into something that's worth remembering, or into a great professional, that someone looks up to in the future. So there's always that, and that's never ending. I have my research agenda that at times feels never ending as well. But yeah, that's another goal. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah. And one thing you said is the workload is tremendous and is a lot as a professor. Is it more than your postgrad? The same? Did that postgrad pretty much amp you up and get you ready to be a professor and take that workload on?
Yes and no. In graduate school, there was way more work that needed to be done. Way more work that needed to be done. Graduate school teaches you how to plan things accordingly and how to work more efficiently. Does it teach you to be a great professor? No, that's something that it takes experience. Like I too am a wet piece of clay, and my students don't know it, but they mold me. Every experience, good and bad, make me a better professor. So graduate school, there was way more work. And you know what? Maybe there wasn't more work. Maybe it was just the work that I had to do in graduate school. A lot of it I didn't want to do. I didn't want to, I love physiology. Pathophysiology is great. But writing a 10-page or 15-page paper on osteoporosis wasn't something I was thrilled about. So I had to, again, doesn't matter what you want. It's what you got to do. I had to just put my head down and write this fucking paper I hated. So maybe the workload wasn't as much as it is now that I think about it. But I think what makes my job easier relative to graduate school is that I love what I do, and that I never forget that I'm here to do X, Y, and Z. I'm here to educate and to influence and to, change the trajectory of for students like my professors did for me. So it makes the work much easier to digest. Graduate school was just especially towards the end, all those papers I didn't want to write, the drag.
You mentioned you're following your passion and you're doing what you love, but you also mentioned that you have a class that's very broad, kind of like an introductory class, and there may be students in there that that may not be there where they're going in terms of towards their degree, and they're just in there to fulfill a requirement. How do you handle some of those kids where you just know that they're fucking off?
I don't take it personally. That's something when I That's something that a lot of people have told me, like friends and family have told me, but it wasn't until recently when I went to speak to somebody. They said the same thing, like you can't take it personal. You know, what's going on in the classroom for them, you know, it's not necessarily you. No, they got a lot going on outside of the classroom. They might not be interested in it, and that's fine. So I try not to take it personally. But as long as they listen, as long as if they want to fuck off, that's fine. But as long as they're professional, right? There are expectations. For each student, there's expectations, and I expect them to be respectful, and not just my time, but other students' time. But I mean, if they're being just like, you know, insubordinate, or if they're you know, being a distraction, then I'll ask them to leave. I'll tell them, get the fuck out of here.
You ever break out the shore style?
No, man, I haven't yet. I hope I never have to. I'm also trying to. This is new for me. I'm also trying to remind myself to have the guts to be disliked. You know what I mean? It takes a lot of balls. It takes a lot of fucking balls to be okay with being disliked and being hated. And that's something I'm currently working on right now.
How do you go about that?
Honestly, it's conviction, man. It's conviction. Like, I know what I believe. Everything I put into place, I believe in it, and I'm committing to it. And then when you believe in something and you commit to something, not everybody is going to be not everybody is going to receive that very well, right? It's not always going to be well received universally. There are going to be students that are just like, fuck this dude, I can't stand him, and that's okay. You know what I mean? That's okay. Oh, this is the worst professor ever. He's an asshole. Whatever, man. This student is going through their own shit. I don't take it personally, but I know better, right? I have my PhD. I know better. And sometimes you got to do things and people don't like, not everybody's going to like it. And I have to be okay with being hated. I have to have the guts to commit to something, and not have to worry about being hated. Do you know what I mean?
Good or bad, you're still talking about me.
What's that?
I said, good or bad, you're still talking about me.
Yeah, right. Well, as long as it's not bad and it's to the chair or the dean. But yeah, again, man, like having the guts to be disliked is something is an attribute I always admired in the people that I looked up to, you know. And I realized, and this stems from when I was like 16 years old, I realized that I've kind of adopted this kind of like people pleaser attitude, you know. I don't like to, like, I'm very confrontational, like not necessarily physically, but like if someone's doing something stupid, I'd be like, yo, motherfucker, you know, like, I don't agree with that, you shouldn't do that, whatever, you know. I don't mind being confrontational, but I try to avoid confrontation as much as possible because I know how I am. I have anger issues, you know, and I feel as though, like, if I can create a situation that's always on the up and up, right? If I could somehow circumvent having to be confrontational, thereby circumventing an issue, I'll do it. And in that, and through that, I've become like this, you know, kind of like this people pleaser. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to fucking fight anybody, and I don't want to lose my cool, and then I come off like a brute or I come off like a Neanderthal, you know? Like, I don't want to be angry anymore. But I also have to have the courage to be disliked. Y'all know this is like a therapy session for me, right?
Dude.
Us too, bro.
Man, we got to do this like monthly or something.
Yeah, man. Dude, never forget, man. Never forget.
Yeah, you might have given me those "you're wrong, motherfucker" talks before, and I appreciate those. So I appreciate that side of my Uncle Steve, and never lose sight of that.
Dude, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. See what I mean? Like, fuck, I have the best friends, man. You know, your friends should make you a better person. You know, and that's, man.
My friends look out for me like family, dog.
Yeah, man. Fucking H2O. All right, a side question here. What is the last song that you listen to, both